Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I truly appreciate the fact that you're here. And today we're going to have a discussion on the Venezuela issue and the TDA issue that's without question become a viral aspect to the city of Aurora, if not the nation as a whole. What I'm going to do and how I'm going to go through this is basically I'm going to give a quick background. We did put together a timeline, which I hope is useful to kind of bring some clarity and transparency to what Aurora, the city of Aurora, and the Aurora Police Department has been involved with over the past several months. And then I'm going to kind of break down what each of these different steps are, and then kind of give a statement, and then I'll open it up to questions after passing it to our investigating officer, who is the lead in charge. Basically, in September of 2023, Aurora begins to notice an increase in Venezuelan population, and with that comes a slight increase in criminal activity. On August the 18th at approximately 11:20 p.m., the video, which you'll see over here to the left, of 6 males entering an apartment complex basically goes viral. These individuals were armed. They were at one of our complexes here in the city of Aurora, and again, that occurred at 11:20. At about 11:27 that same evening, there was a shooting that occurred at 1200 North Dallas. Later on, the individual that was involved in that shooting succumbed to his injuries, and we'll articulate that out a little bit more as we get going. On August the 19th, the Aurora Police Department responded proactively and aggressively to deter this type of activity and issued a search warrant and served that search warrant and ultimately ended up recovering the assault weapon that you see on that picture. And then there was also contact that was made with an individual by the name of Fernandez. And then there was also evidence that was found that linked another person of interest, the individual of Pacheco. On August the 20th, a vehicle was located, and at that time, Fernandez was taken into custody. On August the 29th, Pacheco and Acosta were identified as suspects, and then just this week, on September the 12th, there has been arrest warrants issued for Pacheco, Acosta, and Fernandez. And those arrest warrants at this time are for first-degree burglary, which is the incident you see, as well as felony menacing. Now with that, I want to talk real quickly on some key points for me related specifically to this Venezuela issue, and then the issue that continually has come up is known as TDA. First off, the city of Aurora, the Aurora Police Department, made swift and decisive action related to this activity and the criminals involved in this. There's been individuals identified, there's been arrests that have been made, and possibly those individuals will be in custody very soon, the ones that are not identified. The complexity identifying, and again, that's the big question everybody asks, well, are these TDA gang members or are they not TDA gang members? There's a lot of complexity involved with that. The complexity involved with that is, one, we don't want to misidentify an individual as a gang member. There is a lot of limitations, a lot of rules, a lot of regulations that relate to identifying someone as a specific gang member or an affiliate of a gang. So with that, we have to, one, verify their gang affiliation. That is a challenge. Many of these individuals that we are talking about come from a country which does not have strong relationships with the United States, comes from a country that does not have a database that they are going to share or have shared. So being able to identify these actual individuals as TDA gang members has been a struggle. Unless those individuals identify as self-identification, say, yes, I am a TDA gang member, or there is some specific information on them, on their person, on a specific tattoo, or something that would allow law enforcement to say, we have a strong assumption or a strong belief that this individual is a TDA gang member. Again, there's always that opportunity that we have to verify for sure before we identify them as a TDA gang member. With those complexities and with those things, the one thing that does not deter us, again, is a zero tolerance in relation to crime, in relation to victimizing somebody else, in relation to hurting somebody else. We will not stand for that. The one thing I really want to make certain on in this whole discussion is that this is a focus on criminal behavior. This is not a focus on immigration status. The Aurora Police Department targets criminals based upon their actions and not on their immigration status. Immigration status is enforced by federal laws, by federal issues. Our mission is to provide a safe environment and to hold those individuals that are involved in criminal activity accountable, and most importantly, to protect this community. Those arrested are being held accountable for the criminal acts, and they're not their legal status. That's one thing I really wanted to stress on this. Another aspect for me that is incredibly important is that the Aurora Police Department and me as their chief of police, I am going to use every entity, every tool to my purpose to hold people that victimize someone else accountable. And with that, I will use state, federal, and local entities to ensure that we have an effective outreach and an effective approach to apprehending these individuals. The Department of Homeland Security is definitely part of that. Homeland Security investigation is going to be a tool that we are utilizing and have utilized, as well as immigration and custom enforcement and ICE. We are deploying all available resources to ensure that criminals are found and brought to justice. The unified efforts ensure an outcome in protecting the city and the city of Aurora and the community that surrounds the city of Aurora. Again, I want to reiterate, this is not an immigration issue. It's a crime issue. That is for the federal. The immigration aspect is for the federal. It's for what they focus on. It's what they've done. It's what comes out of federal government. It comes out of the White House. Our focus is ensuring that we have a safe community where anybody, documented, undocumented, can live, can thrive, and can do what they need to do in this world. As a municipal law enforcement agency, we ensure safety. The infrastructure in place by the federal government has not kept pace with the evolving challenges. This has placed a strain without question on local government and local law enforcement. We are working to manage that gap while also ensuring public safety for all. I believe that a coordinated and enhanced resources will be key to ensuring that safety of these immigrant populations and the citizens of Aurora, and a chance to stop a problem driven out of many cases desperation, can be implemented and done before it becomes any more complex. Right now, again, our support for the vulnerable population and the undocumented individuals in the city of Aurora, it goes without question. Crime does not discriminate, and we will not discriminate on how we enforce or what we do. It will be based not on their immigration status, not on if they're documented or undocumented, or what their sex or ethnicity or their race is, but it's based upon the fact of have they or will they commit crimes. And with that in mind, we are going to use every tool that I talked about, every officer, every possibility we can to make sure that we are effectively addressing those crime problems and stopping victimization. But the one thing I want to be very sure that everyone walks away with, we are not going to over-police a population based upon their race or their ethnicity. We are going to methodically and statistically and data-driven and evidence-based ensure that we focus on the individuals that are causing the problems, the individuals that are causing the issues. Lastly, I'd like to say we are in, without question, a relentless pursuit of accountability. Criminals who prey on our community, we will relentlessly pursue you, and we will verify who you are, what you are doing, and why you are doing it, and then we will arrest you. And we will hold you accountable within the criminal justice system of the United States of America and within the Constitution of the United States. We will not rest until every individual involved in criminal activity is brought to justice. Like most major cities, Aurora, it deals with crime issues and it deals with gang activity. I think that's very open. When you look at a major city, those two things are in place. But we are not by any means overwhelmed by that issue. We are not by any means overtaken by Venezuelan gangs, TDA, or any other gang. Our resources, our officers, our mission is to ensure that whatever we get confronted with, we will address. And we will address it the right way. We will address it an ethical way, we will address it a moral way, and a constitutional way. And we will ensure that anybody who is involved in criminal activity will be held accountable, and those who are victimized are supported. That is really our goal. Again, Aurora remains a safe and a strong community, and as the chief, I am dedicated to ensuring that all of our officers understand our goals and our objectives and how we will enforce the laws we will do, how we will be proactively engaged with the communities, all communities across the city of Aurora, whether documented or undocumented, and how our primary mission will be to ensure that those that victimize, those that bully, those that mistreat other people will be held accountable. Now with that, I'd like to pass it on to the investigator. He's the investigator in charge, the officer in charge, and that's Lieutenant T.J. Tisdale. And Lieutenant Tisdale will get more specifics on any of the questions that you have in regards to the case, and then after that, I would like to open it up for any questions that you might have of me or anybody else. Thank you. Lieutenant?
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. My name is DJ Tisdale. I'm a lieutenant with the Special Operations Division. I'll provide some high-level oversights of our case to this point, with the understanding this is still an active investigation, still ongoing. We're still working on this case and others related, so there are details that I'm not going to be able to provide. On August 18th, about 11:20 p.m., we have 6 individuals that enter an apartment in the 1200 block of Dallas. They knock on the door, and when the door opens, they go inside looking for somebody in particular. They search that apartment, do not find that person, and subsequently leave. Minutes later, the Aurora Police Department responds to a shooting within the same block, and officers on scene begin their investigation. Subsequent to that, our investigators arrive on scene, and for the next 13 hours, continue to expand upon this investigation, contacting witnesses, victims, discovering evidence, eventually serving a search warrant in the same complex where the rifle you see in the video was seized, and other items of evidentiary value that give us investigative leads that led to the identification of these 3 males and information that will eventually lead to the arrests of the others involved. At this time, we do not have any information that leads us to believe or points to these individuals being involved in any specific gang. As we continue our investigation, if that information comes out, we will explore those leads as we do. As the chief mentioned, our primary focus is violent crime, and our investigators are incredibly talented, incredibly dedicated, and will continue to pursue this and other cases to hold those accountable who like to prey on our community. This time, I'll take a few questions anyone may have related to this investigation.
Does it matter if people are involved in the gang in the first place? I mean, what you're addressing here is a violent act. You're pursuing people who are involved in that specifically. Does a possible gang affiliation sort of have any sort of larger implication beyond the context of that?
I do not believe that gang affiliation overall has any large implications on our investigation into violent crime. Due to the media narratives that have been spread about this incident, I think it's important that we address that fact. But as the chief said, and I think hopefully as everybody's aware, the Aurora Police Department is focused on combating crime and keeping our community safe. So regardless of gang affiliation, we're still going to do everything within our power to hold offenders accountable.
But if I could add to that question too, we really do want to be able to start identifying these individuals if they are or are not gang members. And when I talked about the steps that we need to do, that's going to be a big part of it. Because again, if you see individuals that are tipping at that point of going into the gang environment, where maybe it's a small clique or it's a small affiliation of individuals, and they're seeking out connection, they're seeking out strength, it's really important. If you look historically at a lot of gangs and how they start, it's really based on a lot of the chemistry and a lot of the issues that we're confronting here in Aurora. And so with that in mind, that's why we want to, again, it's not, they victimized somebody. They mistreated somebody. I don't care if they're in a gang or not in a gang. I don't care if they're documented or undocumented. I want to hold them accountable. But for down the road, I want to make sure that we stem this problem before it becomes too big, that we identify these individuals, that we start working with state, local, and federal governments to say we now have a clear understanding of gang affiliation or non-gang affiliation. That is going to be an incredibly important part, not just for the city of Aurora Police Department. That's going to be something, again, across the United States that law enforcement agencies are going to have to really start considering. Because you see gangs, when they start small, like anything else, and then they become massive. So what we do in these days, how we protect and how we identify and how we get this into the system is really going to reflect long after many of us are no longer in these positions, many years down the road. So thank you.
One of the narratives that's been out there is that these guys were part of a group that took over apartment buildings. When it comes to the incident that we're talking about in this video, when you guys investigated, did they go to multiple of those front doors, multiple units, or was it just the one that we see in the video?
So unfortunately, because this is an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to get into all of those details. I will say that we have warrants for these individuals based on the actions that were taken at this specific unit. This is part of a larger investigation, and as our investigators continue to dive into this, we will have better answers and a more complete picture in the future.
And real quick, I want to respond to your question too, because I think this was almost the perfect storm. Again, this is not just a law enforcement focused event right now. We are looking at the property management. We are looking at the landlords. There's been a number of civil actions that have been placed on the individuals that control those apartment complexes. We're looking at how all these individuals actually ended up in this location. We want to verify what financial means have been put in place with the property management, with the landholders. There's actually a nuisance complaint that I just signed this morning that is going to go into all these complexes. So really, that's where I talked about that gap between immigration and between the federal government and between local government that has to be shored up so that we can better perform. Because right now we have a number of individuals that came in. They were undocumented. There was very limited to no information. Money was disseminated. I don't know where that money went or who has control of it or how it's being controlled. Landlords that are not fulfilling their obligation and their performance of what they are supposed to do are not doing their job in regards to what's happening. And so really when I talk about that tipping point, that's an example of it. There's many things that are occurring in these complexes. All of them are under control. We are without question of providing that law enforcement aspect. But there's many things that are happening behind the scene to make sure that this doesn't happen in the city of Aurora. And hopefully it can be a learning tool for other cities that are going to be faced with this, with an influx of understanding what do we need to do, what's the best practices, how can we fix this before it starts to become a problem. Yes?
Chief, the federal government has designated TDA as a transnational criminal organization, so this wouldn't be just some gang because they operate in other countries beside Venezuela. Does that add another level of concern for your department and your city?
It absolutely does. I think anytime you have a gang of any type, whether it's transnational or whether it's a local clique or a local gang, it causes concerns because first you have to ask yourself, well, why are these individuals connected to this gang? What brought them there in the first place? And again, what activities are they doing to sustain their gang? If you look at the fractions, I mean, even, major gangs, such as MS-13, again, they broke away from a gang called Clantone. And the reason they broke away is because it was a Salvadorian gang and a Mexican gang. So they broke away and they started out small and now they are a transnational gang that has caused huge amounts of problems, huge amounts of victimization throughout the United States. So when you deal with a gang like this, that's why the component of identification, of making sure we understand who they are, what they are doing, and how they are doing it, and then we can do intervention. This is not just about the enforcement. It's also about these number of immigrants, these number of undocumented that have come to the city of Aurora or any place in the United States. How can we get individuals on a path that's going to take them away from this and put them on another path? How can we do intervention? How can we work with youth services? How can we work on different things to show them other opportunities? And again, when you talk about a transnational, again, it's something that could be affecting all of the United States. So for us, we really have to have those strong relationships with not only a local or a state, but also a federal entity that's involved in this aspect as well, so that we are stemming this problem early on before it becomes too problematic later down the road. Next
question. Two questions. One, given the challenges you outlined, how do you anticipate identifying whether they are or not part of a gang, specifically TDA? And then second question, at least two of these apartment complexes have seen crime in that area in the last 2 years at double.
Yeah.
So what have you guys done to actively increase policing there without putting it completely on the landlord? Because I understand that the increased police presence that they've requested was the cost of doing that was put back on the landlords.
Yeah, actually that's 100% wrong. We've actually volunteered to put officers on place in all these venues, all these apartment complexes, and it wasn't going to be a cost recipient thing. It was going to be us just deploying our resources on it. Let me get one question, please.
Sure.
So again, that's what we are focusing on. The one thing I want to be very cautious of is just doing an over-policing aspect, where we roll in there and every person who's Venezuelan, we're immediately handcuffing them, we're patting them down, we're searching them, we're impounding cars, we're writing tickets. This has to be a methodical approach to it, and that's exactly what the Aurora Police Department is doing. We're specifically looking at the individuals involved in the crime. We're specifically looking at the hours, the times, the locations, when, where crime is occurring. We are trying to play catch up over the past 2 years where that has not taken place, to be very honest with you. That's what we were doing. In regards to your first part about the identification aspect, again, that is a challenge right now, because unless somebody identifies and says, I'm a TDA gang member, we don't know. We have to start looking and doing our own research. We have to start working with other entities in law enforcement community throughout the federal and the state level that has very specific identifiers. We can say, okay, this tattoo or this mark or this is an aspect of a TDA gang member. But the one thing that I think is positive with most gang members is that they do like to brag and they're very verbose. And I think that after a while, you'll start to see individuals start to identify or self-identify as, yeah, I'm a TDA gang member, or yeah, I'm a whatever gang they're affiliated with. But it is going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take very specific investigation. And it's going to making sure that we don't misidentify somebody, because I think that's really important too. You identify somebody as a gang member, that stays with them the rest of their life. That is what I am not going to do in this agency. Even if you identify somebody as an affiliate gang member, that stays with them for the rest of their life. We are not going to do that. We are not going to do a knee-jerk reaction to this. We are going to be methodical, we are going to be precise, and we are going to be evidence-based in how we identify and what we do and when we do it. You had a question?
Chief, I have two questions. Since this all happened close to 3 weeks ago, have you had residents that have reported being asked to pay rent by other gang members?
Yeah, there has been no information that I have seen where there's been basically attacks or basically someone saying that you're going to pay our rent to us. I have not seen that. Lieutenant, I don't know if you've seen anything. I'll let you talk about that for a second. But that's something I have not seen. I had the luxury of actually going on a foot beat in these apartment complexes last week, and I was able to door knock a number of the doors and talk about the issues that were occurring in and around there. And that was one thing that I got from nobody. Nobody brought that up or discussed that with me at all.
And the second part of my question
Yep.
is, I've been over there and I've talked to them many, many times, and they're telling me with the trash situation that there's people coming up in great big $90,000 trucks that are just throwing stuff onto the pile. Is the city gonna enforce FAM to clean up the trash? And I know you got the place under surveillance, so you got those people that are coming in there and illegally dumping. Why haven't you done anything about people that are going over there to antagonize those people and throw trash on top of the trash?
Well, we are. As a matter of fact, the day I was there, I saw the cleanup that was occurring. And again, that was a city effort. It wasn't based solely on law enforcement. It was a collaboration of the entire city. There was a number of trucks that were there, and we were going to focus on that trash problem because, again, I think when you look at those little aspects, they really reflect on what people think on the bigger aspects. And so we're definitely, if we see people doing that, they're going to be enforced. I have no problem with that. Next question.
Can we assume that A has something to do with B, meaning A, the visit to the apartment with 4 people, and 10 minutes later there's a shooting and one of those 4 persons is now dead? Can we assume that A has something to do with B here?
I would assume it, but to get more specific and more clarity on that, I'd like the lieutenant to articulate out some information to you.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, we do believe this incident and the shooting that followed are related, and that is part of our ongoing investigation. Our investigators are making significant progress, and they're doing excellent work on that. So,
Anything else?
Yeah, for you. Some people feel like without this video going viral, we might not have had as much transparency about what is going on with these investigations. Can you speak to why information has or has not been rolled out in the manner in which it has?
Yeah, I think one is the investigation was unfolding, but I'll talk for me as the chief of police. For me, transparency is going to be one of my primary goals of letting the community know as a whole what we are doing and how we are impacting or not impacting the problem. So I can't talk a lot about the past, but I will talk about from today on. And you will be seeing me quite a bit. We will have a number of events together and a number of discussions as this unfolds. I really do believe that knowledge is incredibly important. I think especially knowledge in relation to this particular community. You're looking at a number of immigrants. You're looking at a number of undocumented who don't feel secure or safe going to law enforcement. In many countries, law enforcement is looked at very, very drastically different than how it is looked at in the United States, and the comfort level to come forward is not there. Here, it's also compounded by the fact that they're undocumented and they think, hey, if we come forward, we're going to get deported. That is not what the Aurora Police Department is about. We are not about the immigration status. We want individuals that are being victimized. We want individuals that are being mistreated to step forward. We want to help you, and we will help you. This is not about immigration. It's not about documented, undocumented. It's about victimization, and what law enforcement's role is to stop that victimization. Next question.
When did you come in possession of this video? And how did you come in possession of this video?
Yeah, I'm going to pass that off to the investigator. I saw it on Instagram. I'm not sure when the actual date was.
We received this video within hours after it was taken during our initial investigation.
So right away, this was not until it hit the press?
No, we had it literally hours after it took place.
Is that on the timeline?
The timeline shows August 18th when this incident occurred and when our lengthy initial investigation took place.
Police chief, you talked about issuing nuisance citations at multiple properties. Could you talk about, could you say which properties those are? Can you talk about the property management company, whether or not they have a place in this investigation?
Yeah, they definitely have a place in this investigation. Out of all 3 locations that have been identified, our mayor and our city manager has worked effectively to try to institute civil matters in relation to how they are managing the property, what's occurring. There's been a number of conversations back and forth with those property management and with those owners. Again, it's all 3 of the venues that are in place here. I signed the nuisance complaint today, which will be going out later on either this week or next week early. That will focus again on all of the 3 complexes we've talked about. Next question.
This is confusing and scary for some people
Yeah.
in the community, so just to be crystal clear, you guys cannot necessarily say that any of those guys are TDA. Is it possible that they are?
I think there's always a possibility, sure. Again, I don't really like giving out anecdotal information when it's not factual. But again, well, like I said, what we're dealing with is the unknown here. We are dealing with a new group of individuals who have come to this country. Whatever your thoughts are, that makes no difference to law enforcement. And we have not seen where we can identify them yet, specifically as TDA. And you're right, this is scary for a lot of people. And I think the fact that it's at a national level, I think it really talks about that. But what we are trying to do and what this is about right now is to bring that fear factor, bring that panic or that moral panic down, and let people understand that, yes, crime occurred, victimization occurred. Crime always, unfortunately, occurs. Wherever people are at, you're going to have crimes, you're going to have gangs. But we are doing everything in our power to effectively address the individuals involved in it, while at the same time provide and maintain care for the victims of this.
We have time for 2 more questions. At the beginning, you mentioned that there was this.
Go ahead, sir.
Recently, Mayor Kaufman told to us in an interview that in your first day of action, you will sign the document to start the closure of the 2 apartment complexes. Have you already signed this document to start the process of closing the
Yeah,
apartment
that actually
complex?
goes through the city manager from that aspect, and I think that's already undertaken. And then the nuisance aspect for me, from the law enforcement component, I will sign those, and they will be either out today or later next week. And you had a question?
At the beginning of your speech, you mentioned that crime had ticked up a little bit in general. Outside of this particular event, can you talk more about the site of these 3 buildings? Have you seen crime rates go up in those areas? When did you see those go up, and are they rising at rates that are out of line with the rest of the city?
Well, the one thing that we have noticed is we've had an increase in aggravated assaults. And again, a lot of that is surrounding the activity here. But it's not at a level right now where it's gone completely off the chart. I think the fact that we are proactively engaging this right now, the fact that we are moving forward on the enforcement of these individuals on things like this, I think that is going to be what makes or breaks our crime trends. And so again, the early intervention is key to a long-term sustainability of maintaining our crime. And somebody else, yes?
I just have one question regarding this gangs have taken over phrase.
Yeah.
Because on July 28th, there was another shooting, and one of the, not at the same location, the known location, one of the suspects who was arrested, in the arrest affidavit, it said that he was part of a gang and that the gang believed that it owned the apartment complex. Those statements are out there.
Sure.
Is that inaccurate? Is that something that came from the officer? Is that something that came from the suspect? What are folks supposed to take from those statements? It's not the only one.
Yeah. And again, I don't know where those statements came from, so I cannot speak specifically on those, but I can tell you right now, gangs are not in control of the city of Aurora. If you walk away with anything, that's what I will say. Are there gangs in the city of Aurora? Yes, there are. Are there gangs in most major cities throughout the United States? 100% there are. What we are doing now is effectively addressing that gang activity and stopping it and stopping the victimization that goes with it. Statements that made, oh, we control this gang or we control this apartment complex. Again, I don't know who you're talking to, and I don't know where that information came from. But and again, I'm not sure if you have any more on it.
I think that just came out of the investigation, and as our investigators interview victims, witnesses, suspects, all that information is included in the affidavit as necessary.
And again, it's all about perception. It's about optics. What one person says, oh, it's out of control, it might be. And that's, again, why we don't want to see these apartments specifically completely closed. We'd like to say, hey, let's fix the business of what's going on in these locations. Let's make this a safe environment. Let's make this a safe community. Let's change the dynamics of what's occurring. We're not about going in and tearing things down and saying, okay, we tore it down, so now they're going to go somewhere else. I want to fix the problem. I want to address the crime, and then I want to address the long-term issues that are related to that and try to put it onto another trajectory. Last question, please.
Do you have a gang unit? And if so, are they involved in this investigation, or what do they know about TDA here?
Yeah, we do have a gang unit, and they are specifically involved in this. As a matter of fact, the first thing that we did is we really changed what we were going to focus on and how we were going to focus on it. We started to do daily phone calls with all the entities involved in this. We really started to put a myopic focus or a very specific focus on what the situation is there. At the same time, I want to be very clear, we did not lose focus on the other issues that are impacting the other 400 and some thousand people who live in Aurora. We are not going to put all of our assets on this, even though it's a very dynamic issue. It's a very compelling issue. We also have another group, massive amounts of people that we have to support and serve, and we are committed to doing that as well. So is there a gang unit on this? This is the detective that's in charge of that. This is the officer who has been leading that charge. We have talked continuously. We've had phone calls every single day about this, and we will not stop until this issue is addressed. Anything else? One little more?
Chief, APD said that there had been 10 TDA members arrested or suspected, people who were suspected to be part of the gang. I'm curious if that number still holds, if that number's grown, if it's shrunk.
And who said that?
APD.
Do you have specifics?
Yes, that number is still accurate, and I do not believe it has grown at this date and time.
And can you speak to the specific documentation for each of those members that made you all believe they're members of TDA?
At this time, I can't. That would be a significant amount of information, and I don't have that in front of me. I apologize.
Is intelligence the same thing as the gang unit, or is that a completely different department?
I'd like to thank everybody for your time here today and for your involvement. And again, I hope we have many more conversations on this, and I truly thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chief.